Welcome back to Power Hour team. Today is Wednesday, October 11th. Just getting in, I am mobile. Please let me know that you can see and hear the screen all right. And let me jump into the private client fund. Any tickers that you'd like to review, go ahead and post those in chat. All right, just sorting by top gainers on the day as far as profit involved and available. We'll come back to these in a moment. Looks like CART is still number one. We had a bit of a bounce back into 27s where I did add and sell a little bit more equity. Let me sort this one moment. One of our initial short calls got crushed pretty well, mostly out of everything, obviously from the IPO. IPO day tried to push into 45, didn't quite make it as it failed 40s. We were already swing short on day one. We got through 35s and 30s where we continued to take profit and add back into the short. Got that little spike over 30s as our last entry. We faded off through 2750s and 25s, covered into 23s. Then, yeah, got a bounce over 27, added a little bit back. I think you can still look at selling calls out of the money, and they do have every dollar now. There's quite a bit to choose from. I'm going to add a little bit more to January and take new starts into April. Being a new start, I'll still keep it out of the money that far out into spring. You can look at the 27s. Calls into April are the 51 Delta, and they're about 275 a piece right now. If you want to go all the way out, the 31 Delta is clear at the 32 strike. There's a good range on this actually for a new IPO. I think a lot of premium to collect. I'll also be selling some 26s and 27s into January, still keeping those out of the money over 25s. Yeah, it's been really good to us. A lot of profit locked in from the IPO with swing short, and we'll just continue writing some premium, letting time do the work. This new equity core, since averaging back in again, is 7.7% today. Also, still got some VSAT. Took some more out of this just a little bit ago before starting the stream. Pretty similar. We saw a bounce. We had a price alert out for 1750 on the add back. It only got into 1650s. I did sell some calls yesterday, and we got a little bit of a gap down sell off today that's continuing to crush the premium on these along with the equity. No retests on the last two ads. This one's been swing short for a bit since the $30 breakdown after that gap. Built in over 2750s, and we got that rejection into VWAP, and it's been a good 12 and a half points since then. New average on that after progressively taking profit and adding back 7.9%. I posted earlier on X, we had a bit of a sell-off again today in crypto across the board. A little bit of added premium crush on coin. We also had Mara and Riot continue their fails off the morning. We're getting a little bit of a bounce into the afternoon, and we'll see where MSTR ends up. I'll probably sell some more call premium on this. I'm just going to keep it over 345 to 365. And still out into January in the spring. There's still some really good premiums on this. 350s at the 53 Delta are about 3,800 a piece, so 3,800 per contract. If you want to use the 33 or the 31 Delta, you can get into the 1,700 to 1,900 range at 410 and 420 strike. Some good premiums still there. I've got enough in play and profit to lock in that I'm probably going to start into April as well. For that, I'll probably work with the 44 Delta at the 410 strike, maybe 400s for a 46 Delta. Short April, 400 and 410 calls, about 4,100 and 3,800 a piece. Again, really decent premiums. Obviously, those can still bounce. There's some room for a breakout. We haven't had any retest of 365s or 385s in a while. As long as we continue to chop sideways and not really go anywhere into the end of the year, which is typically based on seasonality what should happen, I think there's still just some really good premium to collect out of these over the long term. We can look at adding into HTHT as well. We got that little bit of a spike over 37.50 and we failed that today. Still trying to hold the lows sideways and better, basically end of last year's close. And seasonality wise, we should still maybe see a little bit of a pull into a bounce into November, but pretty much closing flat. I think you can still sell anything over 40 to 45 calls. If they're a new start, the 45s would be at a 25 delta, just about 110 a piece if you split the bid on that. All right, we got some long profit as well, which we haven't had in a while. ENPH new highs again today, still kind of chopping sideways, but we kept selling into those short puts, took the long equity. Equity is only about 5.9% here. I did take some profit this morning and it's just been sideways since then. Still looking at a breakout with potential into 135s. The last alert that we had left out was just about 150. And we should see a little bit of a run into the end of the year. A lot of these bio and the whole sector is not really getting much follow through either. We still have Moderna with short puts and chopping over 100 and very similar action, right? We saw that extra sell off into 97s where we kept selling the 95 and 100 puts. We got that pushback through 105 where we sold some of the equity and locked some of the profit on the short puts, and it's just been sideways since then. Still looking for potential to reclaim 115s, but not really going too far out of range on a daily basis either. There was a little bit of a fast spike this morning that sold off most of the day, but it's basically flat over yesterday's price action as well. Some good equity short on 4 also. I need to take some more of this off, pushing 8.4%. We kept adding in over 55s and we're getting that breakdown into new lows again. We covered a little bit earlier and we're below that. I'm going to take a little bit more out. I think you can still look at selling out of the money calls on this. It's basically just choppy sideways action for the next 3 months projected on seasonality. If it's a new start going into January, the 37 delta is the $60 strike. Those are about 315 a piece right now. They are down about 23% on the day, so you can leave room to bounce on size and look at adding into those as well. I'm probably going to roll a little farther ahead and go into April with these just due to the progressive profit that we have in play. Looking at the 60s, that would be a 45 delta and they're about 500, 520 a piece right now. I'll sell some of those before the close. Overstock along with the crypto tickers, short equity 7.2% again. We did add back over 1750s after previously covering into 15s, and it's just been a little bit sideways action since then. There's still room for a faster spike, and if we get something back into 1750s, I would still like to continue selling some more calls. So I did add some on that last spike, and it's just been sideways since then. CVNA pushing 13% on short equity. We've seen as low as 34 last week. There was a bit of a bounce into 40 and we're back into 37.50s. Still never retested our 45s. I think eventually we're still going to fail into that $30 mark. But at this point, should basically be sideways for the rest of the year. I think you can sell short calls still over 40 to 45, depending on your risk tolerance. They are down a bit today. There's still room to add back and watch bounces. I'm probably going to go to April on these as well. I've got plenty in play through the end of the year, already into January and February. You can look at February 55 short calls as a 36 delta, right about 400 a piece. If you want to go a little bit closer, the 45s are a 50 delta, about 635 a piece. For April, I'm going to start into the 50 delta, 50 strike, about 725 a piece. Looks like they've got some extra interest in that today as well. So you can see a lot more selling going on in that area, and it's still pretty far out. There's room to bounce, so leave room and time for a retest over VWAP into 42 or 45. I think over time we'll still see that kind of fail into new lows over the past couple of months. Riot pushing 27% on short equity. I haven't averaged back into that one like I have with Coin and MSTR. Core is still over 1274, and we're chopping around 950s. I think you can still sell $10 and $11 calls on this. November, they're about $90 a piece right now, and December are 125. There's some room and time there. I'm going to go into March on these because I have everything in play through the end of the year in January. I'm actually going to go with 9s. You guys can stay out of the money if it's a new one still, but I'm going to sell the $9 short calls for March, about 250 a piece. And that's actually a 66 delta. There's room for a spike. I think we'll just see continued chop and fade, right? I'm going to leave an alert back over 1015, see if they try to spike it again. Otherwise, we'll just continue to let time do the work, and really good cushion with the short equity also. Biohaven was the other long with ENPH. We saw that kind of extreme sell-off into 15s. We were already selling puts. We got that gap up and added into buying the equity as well. After I got first pushes and profit out, I added back the core average is 22s, and you can see that retest 22.35s and push into 27s. I already took profit on this morning. I'm going to take some more before the close. It is 21% on equity. And I'm not sure that we really get a breakout or follow through on this. I'm probably just going to raise up a stop to 25.50 area. And we'll see how long the equity holds up. If it continues to push, obviously progressive exits, I'll be taking every dollar from this point. So 27.85, 28.85, 29.85 until we run out of size or it rolls over and we finish the core. Hertz along with Carvana. Swing short equity 22%. We've had a little bit of a bounce this week after covering into 10s. We saw back into 1150s and a little bit higher. I think you can still sell 1250 calls, and we've been over these enough, but into March, they're about 115 right now. January, they're about $80. A little bit smaller one. I don't expect much recovery on this, but do leave some room into 1250 or 15 if it's able to hold up and slow grind. Got some potential into those areas, but really good swing short core. We built over 15s and got a really solid breakdown, 30% sell off with exits and adds back along the way, sitting at a pretty good average still. We also last week and the week before we're building into SOXS short core over 12s and 1250s. We got those initial entries selling the ETF and already had covered into 11s, added back over 1150s, and we've seen continued breakdown into 1035s and lower. Still waiting for a retest of 965s. I think we'll get there over time. That is the gap close as well. Right now I'm sitting at 13% swing short equity, very low risk. You know, we got the tops on those sideways action covered, added back again, and got that fail again. Just triple leverage short while the SMCI, Nvidia, some of the others are still bouncing, holding sideways and trying to run. Really good counter trade against those. And 13% on swing short equity. We got a little bit of a bounce back over 25s. This was originally built over 30s, but we have progressively exited and added into it. Seen as low as 23s, bounced back into 26, and we're chopping under 24 again. I'm just going to continue taking profit out of this. I think if it's a new start, you can still sell over 25 to 27.50. The $30 strike into January would be the 31 delta. Those are about 115 right now. The 27.50 strike are 185, and that's a 43 delta. Just a lot of stuff that, you know, should be pretty low risk, sideways, choppy fades to continue selling premium on and just let time do the work. All right, we've also got CELH, swing short equity. got into 13% this morning this afternoon, and took some profit again. I've covered into the 150s at the lowest. We bounced back over 165 where I started adding back. I was still willing to risk bounces into 175, and we still might get there. I'm not done adding back to the core yet, but we had a really good initial start over 200s and getting that breakdown through 185 and 165 with some really good covers and exits. Equity average is still 184.40. And yeah, just continue progressively locking profit there. We have a mix of swing short calls. If it's a new one, I would still stay over 185s. For January, that would put you at the 41 delta, about 1200 a piece. If you want to go out to the 31 delta, you'll be at 200 strike, just under 800 a piece. Still some pretty decent premium. I think there's enough room on this one that you can sell the puts against it as well. Look at selling 150s or 140s. That would put you at the 31 or the 24 delta and collecting around 1150 or 825 on the contracts. There's probably room and time to strangle that one. I think there's still potential for a bounce, and I don't really see it selling off too hard. We did close that gap and tapped on it, got a little bit of a bounce off that. So we might be able to hold sideways and get even a retest of VWAP back into 175 or 185. If you do sell the calls, stay a little bit higher. I think there's room and time to sell the puts along with it. Docu pushing 16% since we averaged back in. Original core was built over 55s. There was not a lot of retests, and you can see those alerts were still left out every time we covered and added back in. Sold off into 40s. We've bounced a little bit off of that. My core average is still 49.71, 16% here. I think there's still room and time that you can look at selling calls on this. I would not sell the puts on it just in case it does crack off a little harder. I think we're going to see some more of these cloud tickers start to roll over and break down a bit. January 42.50 strike is a 56 delta, but it's around 400 a piece on the contract. And the 47.50 strike is a 36 delta at 200 a piece. I'm going to go a little bit farther on these and sell into March. Looking at the 45s, about 435 a piece and a 51 delta. I'll go with April as well into the same 45s. Try and get them around 500. I might do some 42.50s on that at 600 as well. Those are the deltas are 52 and 59. So if it's a new start, I'd go a little bit closer and a little bit higher up as far as time and strike. Once you get some profit out of those, then there's still plenty of time to write something else farther out, right? There's still room for a bounce on this. We could get some retests or a faster spike over 45 into 50 if they're able to hold it up over the next couple of weeks. It is starting to curl, but hasn't really tried to break out yet. AMC got a pretty good bounce from 7s back into 10s. I started writing some more $10 calls today. We had that really good build and add back into core over 15, and there was a pretty dramatic sell-off all the way to 7s where we were able to cover a lot of our long-term swing short calls and equity. We got an initial bounce into 9s where I sold some more, and that did give us some profit through the last couple of weeks. There's been a little bit of a breakout this week that pushed into 10.50. I've already started writing $10 calls today. Going into March and January, you can look at the 30 delta. This is another one that's got strikes at every dollar, and the 30 delta is still pretty far out. It's at the 18 strike for March is a 33 delta, and the 19 is a 31 delta. And you can still get $100 being 8 points out of the money on a $10 ticker, right? So pretty good premium, pretty far out. It'd have to make a pretty dramatic move to do that. This is the third time, you guys, that they've had to recreate contracts. The old ones are still on here. You can't sell anymore. You can only close. We closed all of those out. These are the new round. If you go into January, then your 32 delta is at the 16 strike. Those are still about $90 a piece, 92. For December, the 15 strike is the 31 delta. I'm selling pretty close to at the money. I don't think the bounces are going to be too strong, even if it does push another couple points. I think it'll be slow grinds that pretty much roll over. Faster spikes would be nice if we can get some more juiced premium. but I'm just going farther out in time to collect that extra capital for the same type of contract, right? So I'll be selling a lot more into March. I'll probably even go, I wish they would write some June. I don't really want to go to January 25 yet, but if you stay at the 20 delta on January 25, that's 46. The 20 strike is a 46 delta, and they're still about 215 a piece. 10 points out of the money, $200 in premium. Every dollar that it fades loses 46 cents. So $2, you cut that in half plus the time decay. All right, so still some really good premium out there. I think this week is a decent time to add some back. All right, team, I'm going to wrap up on that. I do have a call that I need to jump on, so we'll be live again tomorrow morning. Message me if you need anything else throughout the day. Trade safe as always, and we'll see you in the morning. Thanks.